G'day walkers, welcome to the first of two videos around the topic of getting vaccinated. This is the first video, which I'm not really going to call part one, because they're not really truly a series. It's just a documentation of my experience getting vaccinated in Melbourne, Victoria. This is a far more personal commentary than I normally feel comfortable giving, but the times that we're living in, the circumstances we're living in, my own nature, I'm a person who likes documenting, recording things, and it's definitely been a
nice one.
real
Thanks so much. Let's go.
tricky, not just experience, but I just thought that for a change it wouldn't hurt to share my experience, as much as I feel comfortable revealing certain personal details within reason. So this video was lockdown 4, day 1, back in
and on day one of another 7-day lockdown in Melbourne.
it was the 28th of May that I managed to make my way for an early morning appointment at the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne. Because the reason I thought I'd do this video and this commentary is for numerous reasons, but I'm not going to go into the reason why I decided to get vaccinated, why it was a priority for me. I'd like to speak about the challenges that a lot of Australians faced in simply trying to get a vaccine. I'm not going to go deeply into the political context of why Australia finds itself in the position it is. And just to clarify, this video was recorded on the 28th of May, the morning of the 28th of May. It was the first day of the 4th lockdown that was imposed on Melbourne residents. And also, just to clarify, this isn't your usual content creator summary about how to, that I usually do about how a video is created for this YouTube channel. This video is all about the experience of getting vaccinated. So the 28th of May, and this commentary is being recorded on the 2nd of September. So what's that? That's nearly 4 months later, and I've had plenty of time to digest the whole experience, look back on it, reflect on it, and in some ways come to terms with it. So I'm going to tell you the story of the experience of getting vaccinated, as opposed to why. I'm not going to talk about why I got vaccinated, or that's I don't really want to go into that sort of discussion, but I'm keen to chat about my experience of trying to get vaccinated, because without wanting to exaggerate, it was a real battle to get through all the contact points advertised, or not even advertised is too strong a word, because it wasn't really it occurred to me around the end of May that that there was not a lot going on that was really obvious from the point of view that the federal government in Australia was in charge of the vaccination rollout. And it dawned on me one day late in May 2021 that I'm a fairly curious, I like to think of myself as fairly savvy in a general political context. I like keeping up with the news, I like being informed, and I try to make, as best as I can, informed decisions, especially during this pandemic. And it suddenly dawned on me after 2 or 3 weeks of saturation coverage of the Delta variant going absolutely out of control in India, and Australian media was relentless with the way it was bombarding our senses, visually, orally, in audio. Was just non-stop, wall-to-wall coverage of what was going on in India, and it was relentless. And you know, you didn't have to be too clever to put two and two together and work out, well, you know, this doesn't look good. And it sort of triggered my thoughts towards, well, maybe I'd better actually better put a bit more effort into finding out what's going on, because you know, I'm going to make a fairly general statement here. The Australians are, as much as we like to take the piss out of authority, as much as we like to, you know, think for ourselves, and we're fairly sort of can-do characters, Australians are fairly compliant, and it's been really surprising display of, you know, people's mindsets during this pandemic, that for the most part, you know, in general, the population in all places around Australia, the population has been, you know, pretty good at, you know, doing what's been recommended, and people want to do the right thing, and people want to know what the right thing to do is. So that's sort of a general base we're coming off. But you know, when I was applying this to myself personally, like, I'm in my mid-50s, and in the lead up to recording this video, there was a lot of debate about you know, which vaccine was available for which age group, and I for personal reasons, which I'm not going to go into, I was interested in, you know, hearing a bit more verified and authorised, medically, you know, verifiable, medically informed debate about you know, the vaccine choices. And just so you know that I'm not an anti-vax person, or not a doubter of science, that I've got an underlying health condition that I needed to take into account. So I was keen, and that's as much as I'll say, I was keen to get vaccinated. But you know, another. So besides the lack of you know, a strong government information program, federal government information program about, you know, what was available, because as we learnt since between May and the end of July, the Australian public began to learn that the Australian federal government, you know, they had one of their crucial jobs to get right the whole way through was make sure there was enough vaccine supply, and basically there hasn't been. So like, I wasn't bashing on the door of my local doctor trying to get information. I'm a fairly passive personality, so, you know, it's not my way to sort of you know, make too much of a fuss. I was surprised at not hearing anything from my doctor. I thought a text or an email or a phone call about it, because there'd been some debate around in May and leading into June that, you know, GPs were going to be involved in the rollout. But so none of these things were factors in, you know, but you know, having watched the news and what was going on in India, you know, not that I was a glass half full view of the situation, but it seemed to make sense that I'd, you know, instead of waiting until the, you know, later in the year, which was my sort of default position for most of the start of 2021, during the last week and a half of May, it occurred to me that I'd better start mentally, you know, getting through the gears and making a bit of a decisive being a bit more decisive in getting vaccinated. So what eventually kicked me off was that I saw the acting Deputy Chief Health Officer for the state of Victoria, that is Melbourne is the capital city of that state. He was featured prominently in an article and in a media report that he was getting his first dose of vaccination at the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne, one of Melbourne's biggest and most reputable hospitals. And although it's not very close to me, as you'll see from this video, I had to take a train and then another train and then walk. That as this guy was getting vaccinated at the Alfred Hospital, there was also a simultaneous message that the hospital was opening up its vaccination hub to the public, the general public, and people could book appointments and get in there. And so, then on the 27th of May, which is the day before this video, I made my way, which turned out to be the last day before the start of the fourth lockdown. I made my way in the afternoon on public transport, as I don't have a car. I drive, but I don't need a car. Just public transport suits me just fine. And I made my way down to the Alfred Hospital and just to do a bit of a reconnaissance scouting mission, just to get the lay of the land, because I don't know that hospital that well. I've never had to visit anyone there. I've never been admitted there, or I don't know much about it. In terms of, it's better to get a first-person view. So I got down there and had a bit of a wander around. There was plenty of people, although not overwhelmingly so, people down there getting their COVID tests. And the vaccination hub was in a different area off Commercial Road. And there was no chance of a walk-in. And also I decided that I didn't know what vaccine was right for me, but I decided that it was better to front up and sort it out with whatever nursing or medical staff were there, and bypass my GP completely. So I went down there, couldn't speak to anyone. So while I was outside the hospital, before I left the grounds of the hospital, I rang up the advertised number in that article that I saw the Deputy Chief Health Officer, Alan Chang, his name is, and you can Google it. You'll find the article. So I rang up that hotline number, which was hosted by the Alfred Hospital call centre staff, and explained why I was calling up, and they just booked the appointment for me that very next morning, which is how I came to be on the train and be commentating on this video of that experience to get to that appointment. So that was a pretty good outcome as far as I was concerned, and we're getting on the train here at Blackburn, and this is about so the appointment was for I can't remember if it was 6:45 or 7:15 or 7:30, I can't remember, but anyway, I asked for the first available appointment, that I could get down there, that you can be the first or the second person through the door, that you don't have to sit around waiting, because there's nothing worse than having to depend on other people being punctual, and this is how I found myself on the train. So this is a Friday morning. I'm pretty sure the 28th was a Friday morning. I'll just double check it while I'm talking, which is very unprofessional. So the 28th of May was, a Friday morning. So you can see this is the first day of lockdown, strict lockdown, 5 reasons to leave home. That we all know what those are by now. It's the same all over the globe. This is the next station on from Blackburn, where I started, and you can see, I just to amuse myself, I Just had a look out the window at the rise, you know, because I think I got on the train at 6:30 possibly. Not a hugely early start, but I can tell you for a fact that even for this train service, which is a stopping all stations, which is, you know, normally this train would be peppered with passengers of all sorts, mainly construction workers, but construction was shut down, I'm pretty sure, from memory as well. And you know, this is just depressing is not the right word. Like, it's a kick in the guts, because most of 2021, although we had a third lockdown in February 2021, Melbourne was as May was coming to an end, Melbourne was almost beginning to resemble its old self. There was a little bit more people around in the city, more people on the trains, kids going to school, obviously, and then bang, we're back into this, you know, ground zero 2020 type atmosphere of nobody on the trains, nobody on the streets, nobody on the roads, essential workers only, 5 reasons to leave home, essential work, self-care, medical care, going shopping, 2 hours of exercise, and they added the 5th one, going to get vaccinated. So the only proof of the 5th reason to leave home that I had was a text message in my phone confirming the appointment, which turned out to be my my golden ticket to the vaccine, as it turned out. And that will become evident as I keep on with the story. So, but I felt, you know, with the appointment booked, I was absolutely dead keen, dead set, focused on getting to the Alfred Hospital, because I felt that for me, I just wanted to be around the truest of medical professionals. Doctors and nurses at a hospital, to me, sounded pretty good. Melbourne, by that stage, did have, say, public vaccination hubs, say at the Royal Exhibition buildings in the city is a good example. But, you know, I once I saw that article reported in The Age and on the news, for me it was no brainer to make the effort to get to the Alfred Hospital and get vaccinated there. So they set me up with an appointment. They gave me a patient number. That meant that I had you know, established a medical file there. And the train's just pulling out of Box Hill Station. And my intention while I was filming this video was to keep the camera trained on the carriage, the interior. But I never really think it's fair filming people randomly in public, because I just want to respect people's privacy. I mean, fair enough, we're all being filmed on CCTV and iPhones and all sorts of things these days, but I don't want to add to that. So you'll find for the next 20 minutes of this video, the camera is steadfastly and stubbornly pointed out the window, and the sun hasn't come up yet, obviously, so it's going to be pretty boring to watch if you're sticking with the commentary. It'll just be the dull sound of my voice and the odd train going past in the opposite direction. So we're now pulling into Mondale, but I persevered, because I thought, well, yeah, there's maybe there's an audience of train spotters that would like to see this footage, because I have cut up footage from different videos over the past 10 months of creating video content for this channel, and I have noticed that some videos which feature train journeys, some people do watch a few minutes. They like it for whatever reason, which is, so I decided to persevere. But the main reason I persevered was I wanted to document this journey, because I wanted to contribute in a positive way to the whole discussion and noise around the topic of vaccination, but as you'll find out by the time this video ends, and by the time the story of this particular video and vaccination appointment ends, you'll find out that I had a few more hurdles to deal with before I got my first vaccine dose. And that's the thing that I want to document for posterity, is that you know, besides, as I've mentioned, you know, our federal government really failed to meet their responsibilities with, you know, securing the supply of the vaccine for whatever reason they'll trot out. And a lot was made in the weeks after the 28th of May, when this video was recorded. A lot was made of the ease with which people could get vaccinated, and the 7-second doorstop media interview grab audio and visual for news reports, and politicians you know, just airily prompting the listener or the viewer to, you know, book your vaccine appointment now, there's plenty of spots available. Well, I can, you know, this video is for me to document and testify to the fact it was very challenging, and it wasn't as easy as it was made out. Now, I'm a fifth generation Australian, Irish both sides, and I am obviously a native fluent speaker of English, and you know, I even for someone like me to have such challenges, and it really was an exercise in persistence. That there seemed to be so many little challenges and obstacles to just getting a first dose, let alone getting fully vaccinated, that I wanted to commit this story and put it out there for people, and, you know, whether or not it helps or whether or not it's of any value to anyone besides me getting it off my chest, we'll leave that to the whimsical nature of fate. Anyway, so we're pulling up to Chatham Station here, so you've still got about another 20 minutes of this train ride, pretty much in the dark, until we get to Richmond. So I'm not going to apologise for that, because it's all part of the journey. But I was continually surprised at just how hard and how challenging it was to book these appointments. So so what's the best way to tell the story from here? I haven't made any notes, like I'm just going to talk off the top of my head. So if I repeat myself, or if I sound, if it's not interesting to listen to, that's why. But I feel that the organic story from the gut is best, because it'll be more authentic. The thing that really struck me, really struck me, it was either just after I confirmed the appointment by phone, or it was just after I you know, in the next, say, during this particular day and into the next day. But what really took me by surprise was how relieved I felt. Like, I noticed I felt incredibly relieved, and that took me by surprise, that going to the effort of booking an appointment, going through the motions of trying to get vaccinated with the first dose, just the whole act of self-care, of doing the right thing by your own, you know, your health requirements and needs, it suddenly dropped very heavily in my mind how stressed I must have been about the whole topic of vaccination. This incredible sense of relief I was aware of, and I couldn't process initially. It took me a while to process. Well, to have this feeling of relief, I must have been subconsciously very, very anxious about getting vaccinated. Not in terms of doubting being vaccinated or which vaccine should I get, but just the whole process of getting that extra level of protection beyond washing your hands, beyond wearing a mask, beyond social distancing, beyond doing all the right things that can, keep you safe from this virus. Vaccination is the next step, the next obvious step. So that sense of relief that I was finally going to get vaccinated and had done something proactive and meaningful, by my own actions, that really took me by surprise. That it never occurred to me that I was stressed out about the prospect of not being vaccinated for however long, whether it was another month or 2 months or the rest of the year, and just that uncertainty of, well, what is, underneath in your mindset, obviously you're thinking, well, what is the government doing? Why isn't my GP? Maybe I should ring my GP. Like all those sort of things that are, underlying subconscious machinations of your own, mindset and how you process all this information and what's going on. And, as much as you can say, well, as much as it is that we've been living with this thing since the 20th of March 2020, when it all became extremely real all around the world almost at the same time, that took a while to process, and I have to say that I enjoyed that feeling of relief, and I enjoyed the fact that I'd taken such used with both hands, like taking that opportunity, like acted so decisively after seeing that news article. So so we're on the train. We're heading into one of the main stations along the way, Camwell Station. You can see it's a bit more light, bit more activity. It's a hub station. It's a premium station, so that's why you'll see a few more lights, a few more people. By this stage, it's probably maybe I got on the train at 4:45. I honestly can't remember. Not that it's so important, but you can. It's an early morning trip, and like even going to an office job. In the normal course of things, I would never be on a train this early. But you can see a few more people popping up. But yeah, just the activity. The activity just so bereft of participants, whether it's construction workers or office workers or people trying to get to their destination where they're going to serve coffee or whatever. And you can see, there was people on the carriage behind me. I'm riding the front carriage, and you can see the sun's coming out a bit more, dawn's breaking, and there'll be a bit more to look at. But I was pointing, there was no one in front of me this particular day. I always stand in the front carriage, and there was people behind me in the carriage. I didn't want to disturb them by making them the subject of a camera. That's just not fair. So there's about another 12 to 15 minutes of this particular journey until we get to Richmond. And it's funny how stopping all stations always feels a lot longer, a lot longer of a trip in the early morning in the dark, as opposed to an express train when there's daylight. So that's how I came to be on the train, and I was really at this stage, is the train's making its way, and I was just looking forward to getting it done and getting on the way. Just getting it out of the way and just adding that, doing that responsible thing by yourself and by others. The people around you, your family, making sure that, because at this particular point in time, on the 28th of May, well, with the lockdown, both of my parents are in full-time aged care. Very, very strict visiting conditions, and that's the same all over the world, I'm sure, not just Melbourne or in any other state in Australia. So, if it was gonna be a point of contention about visiting rights, that vaccination, because they were making us take flu shots last year, that you had to present a certificate, and I never get flu shots. I don't need them. It's not that I'm against them, but I'll just tell you a funny anecdote actually about it, is that about 20 years ago I was doing amateur musicals, and I was in the light opera musical Deflator Mouse, and it turned out that the bloke who was the lead role, it's a tenor role from memory. The bloke who was the lead role, he was actually a practicing GP, and he was a fairly typical leading man. He was very athletic looking on the light build side. He was fairly lightly built, but he looked fairly athletic. He had a goatee and fairly sort of movie star looks, from the 40s and 50s, not sort of Tom Cruise movie looks or Brad Pitt. And he was bald, but he had a closely shaven, receding hairline, and he was, typical leading man. And being a GP, he gave himself a flu shot. And in the 3 to 4 days before the first full dress rehearsal, he came down with the flu. He was quite sick, but the show had to go on, and he did. And it was a shame, because he'd put a lot of work, and Deflator Mouse is, it's not easy. It's not an easy catalogue to sing. He was quite sick with the flu because he had a flu shot, and he said that actually. But he was probably run down as well, with his workload, and then rehearsals were quite intense. It was quite an intense physical role for him to sing. There's a little bit of dancing, but not much. So that's one of my funny favourite anecdotes about getting a flu shot. The GP gave it to himself when he got the flu. So. But yeah, with aged care, well, last year I had to get a certificate proving I had the flu shot. So I'm sure that'll eventually come in for aged care. And today being the 2nd of September, well, the last 2 to 3 weeks, it's definitely been a topic of contention in the media and discussions in the media all over Australia, that it looks like most employers are going to demand that of their workforce. So as we're pulling into Hawthorne Station, which looks a lot like Camwell in terms of its setup, but trust me, it's not. Normally Camwell Station, the platform would be very full for each stopping all stations train into the city in a weekday morning. You're looking at the immediate track next to the train is actually the express lane for morning and evening peak hour, and left of the camera frame and behind the camera is the platform 1, which normally is just always refilling with people waiting for their next morning city-bound train. But as you've seen, they're all at home, including the school kids. So this is probably what are we? We're half an hour into this. We're halfway through this video and commentary, and that gives you a fairly broad, hopefully not too shallow context for how I came to be on the train going to get my vaccine shot. So I was looking forward to getting into the hospital. I was looking forward. I felt really reassured that I was going to get my vaccine shot at a hospital site. That I was going to be speaking to, whoever it was that was in front of me, whether it was a doctor or a nurse or a specialist or so long as it wasn't going to be a volunteer or a student nurse or somebody with plenty of experience and a working history of being employed by the Alfred, that just gave me a lot of peace of mind, because as I said, I hadn't heard anything from my local doctor, my GP. I sort of take it as proof. Not proof. Or what's the phrase I'm looking for? I sort of took it for granted that she was flat out anyway with similar type questions of when, are you giving out vaccines? Have you got any vaccines? Can I make an appointment? This, that, the other. So I figured, right, I've bypassed all that and just keep that option if needed. This is Burnley Station. So this is the inner suburbs of Melbourne, and thankfully the sun is breaking through the night sky. So some of the lights will start disappearing. The street lights, the night lights will start disappearing soon, and the train goes express here through the next station to Richmond, and Richmond will be just setting the lay of the land for you. Richmond is the main interchange hub station for several train lines, and the final suburban station before the train hits the city. And we don't need to get into the city, so the video continues with me getting off at the next station and walking from platform 8 to platform 2 to get an outbound train from Richmond to Paran, which is 2 stops, and then we'll be walking from Paran Station to the Alfred Hospital. It's about a 10-minute walk, and I was making good time. If I had missed this train, I would have been in trouble time-wise, because by nature I like being punctual. And when I'm on the edge of an appointment time, I always find I get a little bit wound up. So I like arriving 5 to 10 minutes early for an appointment or a place I want to be. That's an outbound train going back towards Blackburn, and we're just pulling into Richmond, and that's Swan Street. That's that's the not the Swan Street Hotel. That's the Richmond Club Hotel. There you go. Burned down a few years ago. Got gutted and destroyed, and it took them a couple of years to get back open again, but it's a nice pub. And then these are all former industrial warehouses, which are now either offices, co-working spaces, or trendy inner city apartments that have had additions put on the top or whatever. And Richmond's pretty busy, 10 platforms, a lot going on, and normally there's this huge crush as people who want to train directly into Flinders Street get off the express train and shuffle to the other side of the platform. And normally you cannot move at any time of day in the morning on this platform, but sorry for repeating myself, but you can see day one of stage 4 lockdown restrictions in stage 4. There's just no one, and you know, because I was making good time, and with the frequency of the trains, it didn't hurt to sort of give you a look at the city from the Richmond station. That though anyone not familiar with Melbourne can see what the skyline looks like. Immediately in front of us was the Melbourne Cricket Ground, the MCG, and in the immediate foreground is the Punt Road Oval, where the Richmond Football Club is based. And so normally, you know, these ramps and this walkway will be full, absolutely full of people rushing from one platform to the other, charging around. You really got to be on your toes. People fly down the ramps, and I don't know why people run for trains, especially during peak hour, because if you miss one train, like, you're only going to wait anywhere between 2 to 7 minutes. I mean, it can't be that. Surely it can't be that bad that, you know. But I tend to take my time and, you know, relax, because there's nothing worse. I'll tell you, I'm on public transport all the time, and my golden rule is I don't run for trains. I don't run to catch buses. If I'm going to be late, I'm going to be late. Like, there's nothing worse than running for a connection that, you know, the doors close just as you're getting there, or it's just I won't do it anyway. So thank goodness, you know, dawn has broken. So while we're waiting for the Sandringham outbound train, just taking a bit of the view. On the other side of the station, up ahead, is the home of the Australian Open, Flinders Park, Melbourne Park. And just a side comment on that, there's been a lot of works over the last couple of years, and they've added, in the last 18 months, they've added a new stadium. I think it's 5,000 seats, and they've taken out so many outdoor courts. It's I don't know, it's just getting, everywhere's just getting so built up, and the Australian Open, one of the great things about it is that there is so much open space, so many opportunities for people to watch the lower ranked players in qualifying, to watch the elite players walk through the crowd to get to the practice courts to have a hit in between matches, and all that sort of, you know, element of, you know, keeping the crowd experience simple and for the people. It seems to be disappearing at the Australian Open. That the players are going to be practicing in Albert Park at an anonymous set of courts behind closed doors, that the public won't be able to enjoy that experience. Little kids won't be able to see their sporting heroes warm up or practice anymore. I'm not a tennis person myself, so it doesn't really, I couldn't care less one way or the other. I don't make it, it's not a habit of mine to go to the tennis, although I have been on the odd occasion in the past 10 years. But for me, like, it's not part of my sporting lifestyle, spectator lifestyle, the Australian Open. So just trying to give you some context about the lay of the land if you don't know how Melbourne's laid out, or if you do and you haven't been here for a long time, and because one of the great things about these videos, I think, when people walk around showing off a particular city, it just gives you a feel for, a bird's eye view on the ground. Like, say for instance, I like watching videos about Vancouver myself. I found one yesterday about Belfast, which I've been to. So it's like, that's the value for me. So that's going to the effort of filming this fairly uneventful, pandemic-driven video on public transport when there's no people around. I think I think there's value there for some people, besides, you know, the real reason why I'm creating this video. So I always like to stand on this side of the train as we pass over the Yarra, and that gives you a good idea of you know, the city's layout if you're not familiar with it. So coming up is South Yarra Station. There's also people on this carriage, so that's why the camera's pointed away to the rear, and I was keen to sort of capture the look of the platform here, just for the benefit of the viewer, and also just to try and make it a little bit more enjoyable to watch. But you know, stepping out onto the platform here, you can see again, nobody, whereas normally there'd be people, lots of people filing off the train, and you see just one guy at that time of the morning getting off the train. And you can see that, now, was he wearing a mask? Masks were mandated for inside and outside, I'm pretty sure, but I'm always wearing one myself regardless. I haven't stopped wearing masks since they were mandated. I think it was last August, inside and outside, and there has been times when, you know, that requirement's been relaxed, but to avoid confusion in my own head, like, you know, what am I allowed to do today? What do I have to do tomorrow? I've got to check, you know, what. Even though we're all falling into this habit of, you know, we're now far more familiar with, you know, what's within our own jurisdiction in terms of restrictions and whatever. And these are some works coming up. I'll just interrupt myself. That's Melbourne's getting a new metro underground rail line through the middle of the city, north to south. So that's what all those works are, and that's a commentary for another time. So I just thought I'll just keep wearing a mask. I'll keep doing all the things that you're meant to do in a stage 4 lockdown at the highest level, regardless of what the circumstances are, because it's just easier just to fall into a routine, muscle memory. So I'm always wearing a mask. I'm carrying workers' gloves. I'm wearing a high-vis vest because it's just easier, to be honest. And wouldn't you know it, but I've been through 3 pairs of gloves, all of them left on trains or buses. And the annoying thing is, my latest loss of, I've lost 1 glove, left it on a bus, and I can't get back to replace them. They're only $20, but the place where I get them is not open, unfortunately, and I can't be bothered doing click and collect. I'd rather just go in and find it and buy it, because I know what shelf they're on, in what aisle. So we've reached our final destination in terms of the train ride, and it's 7:25. There you go. So my appointment was for 7:45. There you go. I've just remembered what the appointment time was. So I was making good time. I only needed 10 minutes to walk from the station, to take a fairly, you know, leisurely walk. There's nothing worse than being on foot and being late, and, you know, having to walk quickly, or God forbid run, which I never do. But I was planning to stop for a coffee, and I'll point that out as we get to it. I won't reveal right now. So Paran is a inner suburb. You know, it should be obvious by now. You know, it's about 5-6 kilometres from the city centre. So it's the third stop on the line outside of the city. Paran is congested with like everywhere in Melbourne. I think everywhere in every Western city around the world, that the demand for living space close to the city centre is insatiable, and it's just something new we've got to get used to in Melbourne. It's been since 2008, this explosion of inner city apartment buildings construction. So I just thought I'd give a bit of a context about the train line while I had the opportunity. I was always going to just record the outward journey. I didn't bother with filming returning from the vaccine appointment because well, the batteries wouldn't last that long, and the main point of the video was getting there. This area, you can see that this is the first time I've been through this area for some time, so I was a bit disappointed, but not surprised to see that new building going on there. The great thing about these back streets is even during when it's not in lockdown, they're not too busy, but there's enough cars. But I was a bit surprised to see this car at 7:25 in the morning on a lockdown day. But who knows? It could have been somebody trying to find a free car park and then walk to work at the Alfred. You don't know. But I was looking forward to this walk because for the purpose of the video, it's a pretty, it's a nice area to look at. Just a quick comment on the camera. I'm using the Sony ZV-1 vlogging camera, and I bought that specifically to try and mitigate the whole lack of stabilization in my previous camera. And although the Sony takes great footage, it's very easy to use. I just like to point and shoot, so I let the camera do its thing on its auto settings. It's always compensating for light and movement, but the stabilization feature on the Sony, it just doesn't seem to reduce to zero. Whatever movement there is. I've got a shooting grip that I decided to lash out on. It's not as compact as you would think. It's bigger than the palm of your hand, the Sony, and it's quite thick. It's about just a little bit wider than the width of a mouse for your laptop or your computer. And holding the shooting grip, I still haven't, even now that I've had this camera getting on to 5 months, I still haven't found the ideal grip that I can mitigate this lack of that can stabilize the footage to pretty much nothing. And also another difficulty I have is keeping the camera horizontal to the ground. And I'm not a person that likes drawing attention to themselves, so I don't hold the camera up in front of my face. I don't hold the camera at chest level. I just hold it at a relaxed position, which is pretty much just below my hips. So that's the shooting technique. And this is the first time that I've watched this video back as I'm commentating on it. Most of it's okay in terms of the shaking isn't too bad, but as of yesterday, I decided that my stats for all my videos over the last 10 months, I've been doing this since the first video I published for this channel was the first week of October 2020, and I know that there's a big market, a big audience for these walking videos, but I'm achieving very, very little, if any, traffic. And so I've decided this morning I've purchased a new camera, the DJ Osmo Pocket, because it has a built-in gimbal stabilizer, and the Sony doesn't. So the only way I could achieve any sort of better footage was to buy a gimbal, and the gimbal for the Sony is just far too big for a walking video, which is the main product I'm looking to create content wise. I'm going to assume that every single person who listens to these commentaries is a brand new viewer. And if you're still listening after 55 minutes, God love you. So yeah, I decided that, because I'm on foot all the time, and because the gimbal would make this camera look so obtrusive, I don't want to draw attention to myself, so I've decided to buy. It's another. It was on special, so another $300 on a camera. I thought, well, what have I got to lose? That while the opportunity provided by the pandemic is still part of our lives, I'm no less interested in creating this video content, and I figure walking video content to me seems to be the simplest form of content to produce for YouTube. I'm not interested in being a talking head or offering opinions or talking about a hobby. So that's why I'm going to keep going with this. Anyway, that's off the topic. So I was planning, and the topic being, my experience of getting a vaccine for those that have just joined us. So I was planning to get a coffee here, which is, you can see it's one of these swanky inner city cafes / well, not restaurant, but anyway, eatery takeaway. And as soon as I saw how many people were inside, and given how much time I had left to achieve arriving at my destination on time, I decided to forego the coffee and just decided to keep going. So we've got about 20 minutes left of the video, and it's only going to take about another 5 to 7 minutes to reach the destination, but you'll see as the video unfolds over the next final 20 minutes the reasons why it's a bit extended. So I use any opportunity to give you a different viewing experience, so that's why I'm walking down the middle of the road, and we'll just fall into step behind this guy and wait for the traffic lights to change. And it's probably about 7:30, 7:35 by now, and in front of us is Punt Road. We're standing on Commercial Road, and this is one of the busiest intersections in Melbourne, with north-south traffic, east-west traffic. Normally, outside of a pandemic, outside of a lockdown, there would be so many more cars, bumper to bumper. The traffic would be crawling at a snail's pace in all directions. There'd be lots of people walking to work to get to the Alfred Hospital, as well as people like me, people with medical appointments. In front of us is St Kilda Road, probably another nearly 2 kilometres, we'll say, maybe a kilometre. And on the right, and you'll see it in about 5 minutes, is Faulkner Park, one of the best inner city parklands in Melbourne. Actually, all our parklands in Melbourne are bloody awesome. Faulkner Park is great to walk through, and I've already done a video about walking from the Alfred Hospital to South Yarra Station, which was recorded on the day and after I'd received my second vaccination. So I decided, I just try to give the viewer a different experience. Instead of just walking down the footpath, it's just, why not give a bit more context? So, and I'm wearing a high-vis vest, so I don't feel like I'm drawing attention to myself too much, because I've got the high-vis vest on. I could be any type of tradesperson or construction worker or even film crew. I never get too many too many weird looks. I don't usually get, well, I never have. Nobody's ever walked up to me and said, well, what are you walking down the middle of the road with a camera for? So that's Faulkner Park. That if you walk straight up that path, you'll end up on Toorak Road, and you'll be within a 3-minute walk of the Botanical Gardens and Government House, and on your way to the city. There's so many different ways to get to the city from here. Hopefully it's getting a little bit more obvious. So from here, because I was ahead of time, my appointment was for 7:45, so it's probably about 7:35 at this stage, or maybe 7:40. That I took my time. There was no need to, to rush and stand outside the door, shuffling from one foot to the other by then. Is that a school kid? I don't think it is, or is it? Couldn't be. Anyway, but I'm deliberately pointing the camera away from people, because as I've said, a few times now in this video, I don't like filming people without their permission, close up. Like if they're at a distance, like no problem, because you can't see their faces, you can't make them out. But this was, in the middle of autumn, obviously, and you can see the other reason I decided to take a walk down this particular path was to let you see the dropping leaves there, and why not take it all in. So by this stage I was feeling pretty relaxed, pretty satisfied with myself, getting on the front foot to get the appointment done. And now from here, as in my head while I'm filming, I'm thinking, well, it's in another 10 minutes I'm going to be standing in front of a nurse. I'll be getting my first vaccine dose. I don't really care what dose I'm getting at this stage. Bear in mind that I still don't know what vaccine dose I'm getting. And as I'm walking now through the park, through Faulkner Park, I actually don't care what the vaccine is, whether it's AstraZeneca or Pfizer. I don't actually care what it is, so long as I get that first dose. Because by this stage, I'm also aware that, on the 28th of May, there was still there's still that period between the first and second dose as well. So, there might have been another 4 to 8 week wait for the second dose, regardless of whether the supply was there. And I've already been over that, about, the topic of the Australian federal government really failing miserably to secure for the whole nation an adequate supply of doses. That could just be, presented in a timely, orderly, rational fashion, which of course has not been the case. It's been an absolute bun fight, and it's been an absolute, and for any kids listening, just tell your mum and dad that I didn't say this, it's been a shit show. And I'm talking to you, Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister of Australia. It's been absolutely pathetic. And that's taking into account, yes, look, the politicians, I appreciate the hard work they've been doing since the 20th of March last year. I appreciate the demands and the pressures, and I appreciate the fluid nature, and I appreciate the bureaucracy and getting things approved. And mate, but look, honestly, if you could just be honest with us, would be great. But no, people aren't stupid, and I'm not talking about me here. I'm just saying that people have a nose. People have a nose for when they're being bullshitted, and it's just been a kick in the guts, to think that they were working to make sure we're all going to be, Australia's just abominable, because this is the other stress, is right. So, as I said before, I like to keep abreast of the news. I've watched very carefully what's gone on in Britain and Italy and America and Brazil, and Australia was light years ahead of those countries. Our death rate was low. Our governments, state and federal, were incredibly responsible, and we're outside the vaccination hub now. We're about to cross the road, and it's just Australia's got such a great reputation for confronting complex and difficult situations, especially on the world stage, not just within our own borders, and the way we approach problems and deal with them. We have got a good reputation, but in this particular situation, it's just been really, really disappointing. Anyway, so that's the situation we find ourselves in, and maybe that gives a bit further context to what I said before, that I was feeling, after this day, I was feeling really relieved. I just couldn't believe how stressed I was, that I didn't even realise how stressed I was. Right, so we're getting down to the nitty-gritty with about 10 minutes to go. So everything, as far as I was concerned at this moment in time, was going according to plan. And little did I know, but I was prepared. I was prepared for something to be challenging, because number one was I'm ostensibly showing up as a first-time outpatient. I deliberately didn't edit this bit. I deliberately left it in because I just want to be true to the whole experience. So I just took some time to prepare, just to make sure that I had my ID, my driver's license, my Medicare card, that I had the text verification of the appointment that I'd been sent readily available. I went even so far as to unbutton my shirt so that I could quickly take that off and get jabbed. Because bear in mind that this is, even though it's the 28th of May, it was pretty chilly that morning, especially getting on the train at. I think I got the train at. Maybe I got the 5:30 train. I can't remember. So I've got the camera set up on the tripod, which is the shooting grip, because the shooting grip also breaks down into a 3-legged tripod. So while I was doing all these things and taking a breath and soaking it in, it was an opportunity just to give the viewer the lay of the land. And you can see there's a few more people around. Maybe possibly all a few locals doing their morning exercise. More than a few staff. So it's at this point that I'm, and then this is the value of being prepared. That I was so glad that I was so glad that I took the time the day before to come down in the afternoon, just to make sure that I knew that I'd seen for myself, where is the vaccination hub? Where's the entrance? Do you have to go through the main entrance? Do you have to go through the foyer? What are the protocols for entering the hospital? How many security guards are going to stand in front of you and say, well, have you washed your hands? Have you put on some? Usually, I've found you've got to change your mask. So that was the case. That you won't see in this video, because on this particular day, the other thing I was going to do was I wanted to contribute positively to the whole vaccination debate. But actually, in my head, I had designs on actually filming the whole experience, to be one of those people to say, well, look, I did get vaccinated, and just put it out there. So I left the camera on at this point, and so the next few minutes of footage is me trying to keep filming and record the experience of getting vaccinated, but also to do it by this stage, as I was waiting in line, even though I'd taken a few minutes to get out my ID, to get prepared, to make sure that I had everything on hand, By this stage, after I took this step, I realised that I was possibly intruding on people's privacy. And as I've mentioned, the Sony ZV-1 isn't the world's most compact camera. And it suddenly occurred to me that the hospital, if the staff spotted me with the camera and filming, that I could very quickly draw some very negative attention towards myself and not get vaccinated on this particular day. So about this stage, I was starting to realise that I was pushing the boundaries of what might be considered appropriate as a patient. So my mind started working overtime by now, that I was thinking, well, am I going to keep filming? How am I going to keep filming? And you'll see the camera flip around in a second, that I adjusted the shooting group. And I wasn't too worried about filming, you know, that it makes sense to the viewer. But I've left it in. I've left it in for the sake of, you know, why not? Because you can hear the nurse. Now the camera flips at this stage. So what I did was I decided that I'd better start making things a lot less obvious, and I bent the shooting grip at right angles, and I flipped it around so that I was holding it so it was, you know, not very obvious. And then what I did in the edit was I rotated the footage 180 degrees. So the camera's upside down, but the reason that you can see it properly is because I've rotated the footage in the edit. Now, the other thing that I did was that I've taken the audio, because very soon the footage will flip. The footage will flip back to me at the waiting spot. But I was determined to keep recording, because I figured that the audio, and you can see my hands shaking there, because by this stage I realised I was really in danger of making a lot of unnecessary trouble for myself. So here's where this is after my conversation. What happened was, I got up to the door, I disconnected the shooting group, and I had the camera in my pocket, which is why the footage ended where it did and suddenly jumps to me outside. And this is after I have spoken to a nurse inside. So the story is that I got to the door, and there was a student nurse on the door, a foreign national here as a student nurse, studying here in Melbourne. That much was obvious. And in very broken English, she went through all the questions. You know, you've been to an exposure site, you're waiting for a test, like all those things. And then she said, you're a staff member? No. You're family of a staff member? No. Oh, well, what are you doing here? So I had to explain in great detail how I came to be presenting for an appointment that was booked on the phone the day before. And she was very, very incredulous. So she made me wait at the door, and I was holding up the line. So I started starting to feel really self-conscious then, because I you know, in your own head you're thinking, oh, people must be listening to my conversation. They're thinking I'm trying to jump the queue or push in or do something that I'm not allowed to do, which is not the case at all. So she went inside to have a word to her supervisor, and she got the okay to let me in, and I had to wait for another 5 minutes. And by this stage the camera was still on, but it was in my pocket, and I realised I was possibly putting myself in danger of creating trouble outside of why I was there. So I managed to switch off the camera, and then eventually I got led round to a nursing station with a very patient, experienced Australian nurse. And we went through all the protocols, and when my medical history came up,
oh, g'day, James. How are you?
Which I'm not going to go into. It's just what it is. She was reluctant about proceeding with giving me an AstraZeneca jab, and she went to check with her supervisor, and between the supervisor, the nurse, she was also a nurse, between the clinic supervisor and the nurse that I spoke to, they both said that no, there was other information about my medical history that they'd like my GP to provide, and that I was welcome to come back, no problem, that I just had to book another appointment. So that all took about 15 to 20 minutes, and here I am outside after that conversation. So I didn't get the first dose of the vaccine, and I'm sorry to let you down if you think that I've misled you during this commentary, but the whole reason I wanted to publish this video with this commentary is for posterity and for the benefit of anyone who's had a similar experience, or for the benefit of anyone who's been wondering why people haven't been getting vaccinated. It hasn't been as straightforward as has been made out. That during there's another video coming which is recorded after I got my second dose. So during that commentary, I'm going to fill you in on how I persevered to get the first dose, and how I persevered and waited to get the second dose, and all will be revealed. So that's the story, that I went through all that effort.
Welcome to this
that I've
walking
just
life.
spoken about, and
Today we're in Melbourne,
experience
Australia,
that I've related.
and today we're on the vaccine
And I went
trail
through all that effort,
from Blackburn
got down there on
to the Royal Alfred Hospital.
The first day of
in
the fourth
Melbourne.
lockdown, I was feeling really confident. I was
on
really
day
looking
one of
forward
another
to getting that first
7-day
dose. And
hard lockdown in Melbourne.
so I'm not crying there. It's just the wind, and the things combined, and that's just me processing the experience that I've just
Alfred
been
Hospital
through.
in Melbourne
And
has just
normally
opened
I'd
up its
edit all
Vaccination
that
Hub
out.
to the
There's
public.
nothing worse than dead silence.
And we
a
have an
person
appointment
on camera, not speaking, and that awkward silence. But I decided to leave. When I was editing this video, I decided to leave
Make
it
sure you
all
subscribe
in
to this channel.
as it is.
It's all coming in 4K
Because I wanted,
from now on. Let's
for
go.
myself, I wanted to see, you can see my mind going through all the gears. You can see the look in my eyes. You can see what do I do next? So just to fill you in, we're finishing up this last 60 seconds. So what I had to do was I had to ring my GP for an appointment back in Camwell at 11 o'clock that same day, that some paperwork had to be filled out by the GP and had to be sent back to the Alfred before I could get another appointment. I'm the bloke who walks. You've been listening to the commentary for my experience getting to the Alfred Hospital for my first vaccine dose, which I went, got all the way there and found out I couldn't get it. The next video about getting the second dose will be coming out hopefully in the near future. I'm the bloke who walks. This was lockdown for day one on the 27th of May, getting vaxed at the Alfred Hospital Vaccine Hub. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and bye for now, and stay safe.